Yo, what's up guys? So today we're going to be talking about some things you can do to get some more cinematic footage with your iPhone. And I'm also going to be doing a quick review of this Flux HD zoom lens. It's a telephoto lens that goes on your iPhone and other devices like that. My mom got it for me, so let's just jump right into it. So I was planning on doing a different tutorial than this, but my mom got this for me the other day in the mail, and I figured if I'm going to do like some sort of unboxing or review of it, I might as well lump it in with another tutorial that I planned on doing down the line, and that is how to get cinematic footage with your iPhone, which is what I'm using right now. And this is just the tips and tricks that I do. This comes in handy because most people have smartphones these days, so it's always in their pocket. Or sometimes, you just forget your camera, or you don't have a camera, and it's nice to pull out your phone and just have the manual controls that you would, with a camera right on your phone. Now, I do use an app that lets me do this, but I will show you guys the apps that I use on my phone to get better pictures and videos. But before we do anything, I want to open up this lens and show you guys what it looks like. I actually have no idea what it looks like, so I'll be opening it for the first time and seeing it with you guys. So let's just open this first and then see how that works, and we'll get into the cinematic stuff. Got like a lens cap, which is cool, and whoa, you just screw it on like that, and then it just clips right over here for the iPhone. Anyway, it's really easy. Like, the hole's almost exactly the same size. It clips on pretty nicely. It's rubber on either side, so it's not going to scratch your phone. We're going to see what we can try out with this. It's a 12x zoom lens, so it's meant to get things pretty far away on your iPhone with a lot of clarity, since with your iPhone, if you zoom in, you lose a lot of quality on it. Some takeaways though is, because it is such a zoomed in lens, you will have some problems because a lot of the settings are auto for taking photos. You'll get a lot of micro shake when you're holding this because you can't change your shutter speed and stuff like that, and sometimes your photos will come out blurry because it's on auto settings. But I'd say overall it's a pretty cool little lens for the price. I think it's pretty cheap. It's like, depending on which brand you get, it could be like anywhere from $10 to $20. It gives you a lot more range with your iPhone, because iPhones take pretty good photos as is, but if you want to get something far away, which is what this was meant for, it takes a pretty good photo. And there are other kinds of lenses like this. This is a telephoto lens, but you can have other lenses like wide lenses that a lot of other companies sell, like Moment. Moment makes pretty good lenses, although they are pretty expensive, but that's because they use a really nice materials and nice glass on that. If you really want to take nice photos and videos and want a lot of range with just using your phone, you should look into getting something like this, which is really good, although I don't know why you'd want to use it for video. The other two lenses, the wide angle lens and the medium lens, can be great for photos and videos if you want to get some nice shots with your iPhone. I definitely give this little lens a thumbs up. It's really sweet. I think I'm definitely getting a lot of use out of it. This is really convenient. It's small. You can pack it away in your backpack, your pocket, anything, and just take it out whenever you need it, clip it on. Super easy. Obviously, this isn't a professional, like, in-depth review. This is just me kind of opening it, slapping it on my camera real quick, and checking it out, and throwing what knowledge I have about other kinds of lenses that are for my phone in with what I know about lenses in general, and just from using this for like the short amount of time. I'll link it in the description below if you guys want to check it out yourself, as well as the Moment lenses. Anyway, that's my little video or part for that. Anyway, so moving on, talking about the cinematic stuff for the iPhone. So if you guys remembered from my last tutorial with the GoPro, we talked a lot about the manual settings for videos. And so in talking about the manual settings for the iPhone, I think it's pretty similar, because the iPhone and the GoPro are both pretty good point and shoot cameras. If you take them out and you leave them on their auto settings, they'll pretty much do everything for you that they know needs to be done to get a pretty good shot, if you're happy with that. But if you want to get that step above in your footage just using your iPhone, there's a lot of manual settings that you can take care of. And there's a few ways you can do this. And I'll also get a little bit into photos if you guys want to talk about that, since I did talk about the lenses. But firstly, for video, open settings for your iPhone, go into photos and camera, and then you're going to scroll down, because it's going to have a lot of settings for how you want to store your stuff and stuff like that. But then at the very bottom, it's going to have the camera settings, and there's only like a few things you can edit here. I would strongly suggest for capturing photos or shooting video with your iPhone without any apps would be turning on the grid. This was a huge factor for me when I was doing my last video, shooting with the GoPro. The hyperlapses that I did, I actually didn't shoot the GoPro, I shot them with my iPhone. And the way that you have to do that, I'll do a tutorial later, but you have to have the grid on your iPhone, so that way every time you go to take a photo, you have it in line with the grid that you have on your phone. It makes a huge difference. It's really important because eyeballing it is just going to make your photos be all over the place when you go back and look at them. It also helps you to frame your subject and what's going on in your image. So if you, I'm not really going to talk about composition today, but if you look at your lines, you can do composition that way using the rule of the thirds or stuff like that. So putting your subject in one of the four corners of the grid, or you could look at how that relates to other things in your object, like leading lines and blah blah blah. Like I have leading lines, all these lines behind me right here, they're going in, they're pointing into me. That's leading lines. Anyway, so yeah, turning on your grid is super important, I would say. So the next thing that you have on your settings would be the settings that you use to record. So you have 1080p at 30 frames per second, 1080p at 60 frames per second. Both are really good options. I've done both before. You have 720 lastly as your first setting at 30 frames per second, which I'm pretty sure most people don't view things in 1080p now. It's kind of it's still basically the standard, although more things are leaning towards 4K, but I'd probably stay away from 720, especially if you're trying to get more cinematic stuff. So first things first, photos. Like I said, you make sure you have the grid on, but when you're taking photos, a huge thing that you can do, this is just very similar to what we do with the GoPro to make your photos better, is change your exposure. And the way you can do this on your phone is, without any apps, is to look at what you want in the frame. So you got everything you want in your frame right here, and then you touch and hold the spot that you really want to have the exposure focused on in your image, just like the GoPro. So if you tap and hold it for a few seconds, it'll do the auto exposure there and adjust it for that spot, and then from there you can move your finger up and down in this square and it'll adjust the brightness based on this spot exposure right in the center of the screen, and you can lower it. Or if you want to lock your exposure, you can tap and hold in that same spot, but hold it there for a few seconds. And what this does is it locks your exposure and it locks your focus. So your focus and your exposure will be focused on this one point that you set in your camera. So that way, if you're moving around, it won't change. And this comes in play with video too. If you're recording video and you're looking around, your video is not going to get brighter or darker as you go around. It's a simple tip that if you do, will immediately make your footage look way more professional. Now, as far as things go for apps, two apps that I would use are called SnapSeed, which is made by Google. It's free on the App Store, and Lens Distortions. What SnapSeed does, it lets you adjust curve, transform like how tilted or whatever your image is, stuff like that. It lets you color your photos, edit them, adjust the brightness, the contrast, the sharpness, all that stuff right in there. Then Lens Distortions is kind of like that extra flare. It gives you like these little lens flare packs, smoke packs and stuff like that to add a little bit more definition and detail to your images. Getting on to video, the video stuff for the iPhone, like I said, besides the settings you can do right there for the iPhone itself with no apps, is really fine. But if you want to look into getting some more manual controls and use apps, there's two apps that I use. One of them's free. It's called Pro Movie. I know there's a paid version and there's a free version. Pro Movie is really similar to Filmic, is the other app I'll show you, and I don't really think you have, I mean, it gives you a lot of the same controls: exposure, white balance, focus, zoom, shutter speed. But it's a great free app that lets you allow that. But I'm gonna be working with Filmic just because that's the one that I use mostly. So Filmic Pro, I think, is like $15 in the App Store, and what it does is it allows you to do the same things. It allows you to manually control your orientation of the camera so it doesn't flip. You can do your focus, you can do your shutter speed, your ISO settings, your focus of your camera, it lets you do a little bit of color correction, and if you want to spend like $10 more, you can do like full color correction stuff right into your photos, which is options that you don't have any control over through your iPhone itself. You have to get these apps. Alright guys, so sorry about all the jumps and everything, but my memory card ran out of space and I was working on editing the video, so I'm just going to try to finish it up real quick here because it's getting kind of long anyway. There's just a few more things that I want to point out about this app. So if you tap and hold on the little circle, this is where you can adjust the ISO and the shutter speed right away, and you can lock both of those so they don't change, which is really good and really important. Lighting is super important when it comes to filming your stuff and making it more cinematic. And then on the other hand would be changing and locking your zoom and your focus And you can do that by clicking on the square that's on the right side of your screen in this app, and you can tap on either zoom or focus and move the sliders up and down, and you can lock these right there and they're not going to change. And then if you want to change the frame rate that you're shooting at, you should come down to this little gear icon right here that has settings, and it'll have a little thing that says frame rate and a bunch of other settings that you can mess around with on your own. I'm not really going to get into it right now because a lot of it's just stuff that's really personal preferences based on the app. As far as things go that really will affect how your footage will look and to make it more cinematic using this app and the other app, you guys should check out my last tutorial, which was covering the tips and tricks of the GoPro and also explaining what these settings do, because the GoPro is very similar, I think, to this, but this app pretty much gives you the settings that the GoPro has already on it. So you have, again, to review, you can change your ISO speed, you can change your shutter speed, you can change your frame rate, your focus, and your zoom. You can't change your aperture, it's a fixed aperture again, just like the GoPro. But yeah, like I said, check out that stuff, or if you want, I can do a full in-depth tutorial separately covering these settings. But as far as it goes for that, I think I'm going to end it here. So just to review real quick, a couple things you can do to make your footage more cinematic. You can get some lenses like the ones that I showed, like the one I showed in the very beginning, or from the links down below. They will really help your footage because they give you a lot more dynamic range and the kinds of shots you can get just on your phone. Next thing you can do is mess around with your settings solely just in the camera app, adjusting how you want to shoot in terms of quality and frame rate, as well as using the grid to take photos, and also using that trick to tap and hold the screen to change your exposure or lock your exposure and your focus. The next thing you can do also to edit your photos is download those two apps, SnapSeed and Lens Distortions. They'll come in handy, and I'll do a tutorial on how I edit my photos right off my phone with those two apps. And then lastly, you can either get Pro Movie or Filmic Pro, which are both really good apps that give you manual control over the lighting settings for your cameras and will really help step up your game from just shooting on your iPhone. Now before I go, I'll show you guys this quick footage that I did. I strapped my iPhone on top of my glide cam and took two comparative shots, one using my iPhone and Filmic Pro and the other using my Canon. So I'll let you guys be the judge of that. They're both color graded the same way, they're both the same frame rate. Actually, the Canon was on auto for this because I couldn't really access the thing when I had my iPhone strapped on there on the glide cam. But I'll let you guys be the judge of what you think the footage is. I think they look pretty similar. And again, most people I don't think would notice the difference between iPhone footage and like a really expensive camera. The minimal differences between a camera like the iPhones and like a DSLR are pretty, I mean, in some cases they're pretty big, but in other cases they're pretty small. But it's those small differences that really set apart the professionals and the beginners. Anyway, that's going to be it for me today, guys. And before I go again, I want to do another post notification shout out for today's video. And that goes to Gary Vaughn. So I will leave the link to his channel in the description down below, and if you guys want, you can go check it out, show some support. And in the next video, I'm going to try to cover, I want to do a little bit of a discussion thing, asking you guys if you think equipment matters or not. Personally, I think it matters up to a point, but we'll get into that in the next video, as well as the photo editing stuff and maybe the iMovie Basics Part 2. But until then, I will see you guys in the next video, and have a good night. Alright, peace guys.
Fresh Boys on the track.